What is up today, guys? I'm starting the video here. I'm going to rip the audio off while I work on the Volkswagen here. I have to do some work to it, but I will. I'm going to need our pliers. But I will do a video of me actually working on it. I'm not so much worried about me working on it. This is more background image, and we will kind of talk about some stuff. Well, I'm back. It's been a little bit. I took a little break, had some projects to work on that weren't so much automotive related, but kept me busy nonetheless. So I thought I'd do a little video. I've been mulling this video over for quite a while, whether I wanted to do it or not. And it's in regards to is the vintage car and motorcycle hobby dying out? And this is just kind of my take on it. Take it for a grain of salt for what it's worth. I'm a lot, so the reason this all started was because I was listening to podcasts, and then of course there's YouTube videos about this as well. Trying to break the petcock loose on the radiator. Slowly, it's got a lot of gravel built up into it. But so my take on this whole, is it actually going away? And there's a lot of people say it kind of is. People aren't wanting to buy older cars, but I don't know. To be honest, I think we're just in an economic slump, and that's why things aren't moving. Yeah, kids probably aren't as interested in older vehicles as they once were. There we go. Just because, people my age aren't really as interested in them as much either. But I'll tell you, I think it'll all come around. Things kind of go in cycles. I kind of look back at like the 2009 area. That was the era when I was getting into stuff. That was when I was still in school, but I was still into older vehicles. See if I get this to leak out. Ready to cool it here. If I did that right. I think things go in cycles. You kind of look at how, when in the late 2000s, you got into rat rods. That was because they were cheap and they were affordable. We were just coming off the big chopper craze of the early 2000s, Jesse James, OCC stuff. I mean, Pro Street was around then. And, in the later 2000s and early 2010s and mid to late 2010s, we got into street racing. I mean, the TV shows came out, racing. And that's all cool with me. But I really think what's probably end up going to happen is as prices dip, people start to get a little bit more money, a little bit more apt to getting into the older vehicles as they drop in price. It may not be what's super popular with other people, but the young people will find stuff to mess around with. A lot of people say it'll be, some of the podcasts I listen to say it's going to be scooters, which is true. People may get back into scooters. I remember when I was in college, scooters were fairly popular. They were kind of hard to come by. They were cheap. And now they got kind of expensive because a lot of people got into them. You could blame hipsters. But then now they're back to lower prices again. Got a cat trying to get in the lane, freeze on draining, get him away. But I just fear that's kind of, I don't know how to put it. I think things go in cycles. You know, first gen Camaros were almost impossible to find when I was in high school. They weren't impossible to find, I guess I should say. They were just very expensive. And for someone in high school or early college in their late 2000s, early 2010s, they're out of the realm. But you know, now they're starting to pop up. Projects are starting to pop up at reasonable prices too. And you know, COVID kind of drove up prices on everything. And you know, things I think are starting to settle down. Now is a buyer's market for a lot of projects. So I think everything will kind of come back around. Yeah, some things aren't going to be popular. Think of the Tri-5s. Although I spent a lot of time in a Tri-5 in a '57 Chevy, going on trips and stuff with my grandpa, because that was what was popular in the early '90s. I mean, those aren't as popular nowadays, and you can find Tri-5s for a very decent price sometimes. So I think things will just kind of come around as they get popular. They'll pick back up. You know, flatheads in the late 2000s with rat rods, those were really popular. And W heads actually spiked up in price, old 348 and 409s, and they became kind of hard to find. And they're not rare Chevy engines. I know it sounds like I'm peeing, but I am draining antifreeze. You know, I don't know. It's all going to come around. I think it's all going to come around. People aren't buying Harleys. They're big. They're not, you know, I think you can buy a 70s or 80s one for fairly reasonable prices, but, you know, they'll come down in price. People will buy them because they're cheap. They'll find out how fun they are, and then things will all seem to slowly go up in price again. I don't know what that means for new Harleys. That's not really my concern because I'm more of a vintage guy. I enjoy older vehicles and motorcycles. But it may not be as popular later on, but it can always kick back off. I can't think of anything offhand like that. But, you know, worst case scenario, 10 to 15 years, I doubt this is true, Duesenbergs and Cords will be real cheap and be able to get one for a fairly reasonable price. But I doubt that'll happen. I can always settle for an old Packard, a big boat, you know, touring car, 20s. You know, it just kind of... There's not much I could say more about it. I am not super worried about the market. It'll either be beneficial for me or it'll be the same. Being in, you know, liking old cars and stuff. And the prices will drop on everything, or they'll just kind of float around like they always do, going higher and lower. And then that's just what it'll be. It'll just be the hobby. So I'm not super worried about it. We'll just kind of see what happens. I mean, a lot of people are saying it's dying. At one point in time, probably around 2020, when what was going on, my grandfather was telling me hot rodding is dead. There is no more hot rodding. He thinks it's all going to be electric. But you know what? I'm not an electric guy. I don't necessarily hate on them. It's not my cup of tea. I'll probably get an electric car at some point later in my life. There's a lot of variables that go on with that. You know, it's going to take a lot. But this isn't about electric vehicles. That could be what, you know, the new hobby is for the young kids. I mean, they're easy, simple. There's hardly any maintenance from what I understand. I mean, if it's anything like an electric golf cart. Just kind of, you know, I don't worry about the hobby dying. There's time to check out some other videos. Nonetheless, I'm not worried about the hobby. It's going to be a hobby. Hopefully it all work. I mean, it's all going to work out. I'm not worried about the hobby. It's, I don't know, the doom and gloom. Yeah, some companies may go under. I don't know what. A lot of talk about Harley, but they're the big manufacturer in the United States of motorcycles, I think. So I'm not a Harley guy, so I don't focus on that. Like I said, I'm a vintage guy, mostly vintage two-strokes. So that is not my area to be lurking around in. I just get my news from podcasts and YouTube videos, and yeah, so a lot of people fret about it, a lot of people complain about it, but you know, at some point kids will get tired of being on their tablets and playing games and stuff, and people will want to get outside and do stuff outside, and they'll enjoy the experience. I don't know, enjoying the experience of wasting all their money on old vehicles. Maybe. It's a... It's an interesting hobby. But it's a fun one nonetheless. And I'm going to end my rambling here and say that I do have a couple videos going to come out. I went to a couple museums, so we'll check that out. Got a little bit of work on some other stuff. I've been mostly working on stuff that I didn't think would be as interesting for a video, but I'm kind of getting around to having more time to get back to my projects and some other people's projects. So, without ado, I'm going to leave this video saying thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more.